this debate of, being a rapper or not. Yes, like if you're a rapper, then you haven't really built much, like by definition, right? All you did was take a model and you brought it to the customer. But most problems that you try to solve require you to do a lot more work. These AI models are powerful, but like you said before, they are extremely hard to actually use. Like, first of all, they're not like any software that you ever used before. They are completely non-deterministic, right? You ask the same question 5 times, you're going to get five, different responses. They may be all sort of be all on the same target, but they are different. And so you have to sort of do a lot of work to actually make this model
Yeah.
technology useful for whatever application that you have. In fact, like, when you think about like training your own models, I would actually say that for most startups, probably the better thing is to spend all of that energy, instead of on training or fine tuning models. It's on preparing, for example, the right input that you can actually give to these models so that they can do a good job, and using them effectively in your overall application architectures.
My guest today is Arvind Jain, the founder and CEO of Glean. Before Glean, Arvind spent over a decade building Google's search infrastructure. He then co founded Rubrik, which recently passed $1 billion in run rate revenues. With Glean, Arvind is tackling the long-standing challenge of enterprise search. Yet his vision goes beyond this. He believes every employee should have their own team of AI agents to help them work smarter and achieve more. In our conversation, Arvind shares his journey as a technical founder and offers his unique perspective on what it takes to build a successful startup today. We also discuss where AI is heading and where he sees the biggest opportunities for founders. Here's Arvind. Arvind, welcome to the B2B SEO podcast. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we just start by talking a little bit about your personal journey? You were at Google in the very early days. Tell us a little bit about that. What did it teach you? What are the lessons you took away from Google?
Yeah. Well, Google is an amazing company. First, I was actually, when I joined the company, I was a bit confused. Did I actually join a corporate, like, a company, or is it a research lab? Is it a playground? What is this place? Like, because I joined and there's nobody who really asked me to, do anything. You join as an engineer, but there is no job that somebody has in mind for you. You just go and figure out like what technologies you want to build, what innovation you would like to do, and just go and work on it. I think I saw my manager like maybe a month after I joined. So before that, like, I went in and asked people like, what am I supposed to do here? And the advice I got from folks who were in the room was like, yeah, just go meet people, like, figure out if there's any problem that you'd like to work on and then work on it. And so the first problem I found was that we had some problem in shipping our search index to our worldwide set of, like, data centers, and for some reason nobody thought it was a big deal. So I went and actually fixed that system to make sure that a fresh, web index can be pushed to all of our servers. And that's how my search journey started in terms of, working on search. And that's been like the problem that I've been now, I guess, working for many years.
Very cool. And then in 2014, you decided to do a startup. You left Google to start Rubrik. What drew you to start a company and become a founder?
Well, I always had a desire to be a founder, to be an entrepreneur. In my early stages of the career, I wanted to do it because it was sexy. That was a cool thing to do, and I wanted to be cool. And but I actually didn't do it.
You are
Like,
cool.
I but that was a desire. Like, it was always on my mind. I was always thinking about ideas, and um, but I kept, working, and I didn't actually start a company, though I was part of these very early stage startups. Before Google, I was part of the founding team of Riverbed. Like, it was four of us initially building that company. So I had some good experiences. I enjoyed those. But then, like, after I joined Google, I really enjoyed that whole experience of getting to work on problems that fundamentally change how we live. Things like Google Search, Google Maps. These are technologies that have fundamentally,
Mhm.
redefined our lives. And so getting that opportunity to work on these problems that everybody in the world benefits from, that was just so amazing. So I just loved that, and I kept doing it. And that sort of desire to actually build a startup, like, sort of, went away, from me. And then in 2014, I was at Google for over a decade at that point, and a friend of mine, Bipul, he told me that, like, let's go and build a startup together, and he wanted to build it in enterprise data protection space, which had probably nothing to do with me and what I was doing for the last 15 years, building consumer products. First, I asked him, like, why, that's like, I'm not the right person to, to build this. But I think that whole, that desire that I always had, that can I go and build something without this massive support system? Can we actually create value? It was a thing that I was sort of excited about, and proving to myself and learning some new skills. As he and I discussed this more, ultimately I got excited about that opportunity, and then we, started the company together. I guess you always have the desire to build something big and huge, but you also, I think, at least for me, my personality is one of an engineer, where there's a lot of doubt in the process. And so I never imagined how big Rubrik would become. Just recently crossed $1 billion in ARR, which is incredible.
No, it's truly remarkable, and congratulations. Very few companies end up becoming large, enduring public companies. You have one already under your belt, and you're on your way to your second. So let's talk about the second one. Talk to us a little bit about Glean. How would you describe what Glean does?
Yeah, so Glean is actually very simple. Like, think of it like ChatGPT, inside your company. So it's a bit more like Glean does a little bit more than what ChatGPT does for you. It's a AI, um, assistant. As an employee, you can go to Glean and you can ask any question that you have, and we'll try to answer that question for you. Sometimes we'll use all of the world's knowledge to answer that question for you. That's what, just like ChatGPT. But if your questions require us to tap into all of your internal company's knowledge, then we will do that as well. So that's the way to think about Glean. Like, it's a Google or ChatGPT, that's connected to all of your enterprise information, all of your company's data and knowledge, and it helps people with their day-to-day job. The primary function, of course, of Glean is you come and ask questions, and we'll answer those for you. But as you see with AI technologies, AI can do a lot more for you than just answering questions. It can
Yep.
do a lot of work for you. So in fact, Glean actually becomes that work AI platform. We can actually help you bring automation and efficiency in many of your business processes.
That's very helpful. Now, interestingly, you actually started Glean before ChatGPT in
Mhm.
2019, before, you know, the chat interface,
Yeah.
just became mainstream. So what was your why now thesis in 2019?
When we started Glean, ChatGPT didn't exist. So when people would ask me the same question, "Hey, what is Glean? What do you want to do?" I would tell them that, "Look, I'm actually building a Google for people in their work lives." And so that was our ambition. We wanted to make it really easy for people to find information and get answers to questions that they have when they're working. And it's been a frustrating problem for people for a long time. Even when I was at Google, like, the world's biggest search company, we all of us spent all of our engineering careers trying to help people find information on the web, but we never really helped ourselves. It was incredibly hard to find anything inside Google as well when it came to our work. So you can think of it as enterprise search.
Yep.
And this is a market that has never seen success. There have been a lot of attempts, of companies trying to solve this problem. And you never saw anybody really achieve great success, build great products, partly because it was a really, really hard problem to solve. But in 2019, when we started Glean, we saw a few different technology trends that we felt really enabled us to build a first good product in this domain. Over the last, like, 15 years, companies have moved progressively from packaged applications in private data centers to this SaaS based
Yep.
applications. And one of the good things about SaaS is that the whole complexity of software versioning goes away. And also, SaaS products have been quite interoperable.
You can pull data out.
Exactly. So great APIs. To build a good search product, you need to actually have access to all of your company's data. If you're using 100 SaaS applications, well, we can build integrations into them, use the open APIs, and there you go. Like, we have all of your company's knowledge to work on. And this used to be a problem that in the past would take 1 year of implementation to get hold of all of your data inside the enterprise. So that was a big trend. The other big trend, of course, cloud. Search is such a complex problem. Like, imagine Google. There are like 50,000 engineers working over the last 25 years building that search product, which looks and feels the same. It's a white page with 10 blue links. You probably would wonder what's happening behind the scenes. Why do you need all these engineers? Because behind the scenes, there's a lot of work to be done. Search is like magic. You can come in, you can ask questions, you can just give us one or two words, you can misspell them. Somehow we have to read your mind, figure out what you're looking for, and produce the right answer back to you, right? So it is a complicated problem, and there's a lot of work to be done. And then frankly, it's not friendly in some ways. The amount of R&D investment you need. But again, with the cloud technology, a lot of core search tech components becoming open source, we were actually able to really build on top of this great infrastructure. And the biggest one, which I didn't talk about yet, is the transformers. Everybody talks about Gen AI and transformers, and we can see how they can have impact on pretty much every single part of our lives. But in 2018, this was a concept largely sort of restricted to folks on Google search team. This is where this technology was originally built, and we were already seeing the impact of these models on search, on all the different individual technical components that we have to build inside search. For example, we spent many, many years building a synonym system at Google, lots of technology, lots of sort of machine learning that powered that system. But now you sort of have a transformer model, and you just put the entire world's data on it, and it actually builds a better model without any tuning or any hard work. So we saw that there's a step function change in what you could do with these language models and understand information and knowledge at a conceptual level that we could never before. So that was a big unlock. We felt that this ability that these models have, this will allow us to truly understand an enterprise and all the information that lives within that enterprise, and build a search product like one that has never been built before. Those three things made me believe that this was a good time to build a product like this. But of course, the catalyst was not the technology. The catalyst was me getting frustrated with not being able to find things at Rubrik. In fact, we had a pulse survey that we did in the company, where this was one of the biggest problems that people complained about, that, hey, I cannot find anything in this company. And I
So you're
also
like,
don't know.
I'm now determined to solve this. It's time I fix this problem.
Exactly.
You're spot on. Enterprise search has been a problem going back to the early 2000s. And you probably know this from your days at Google. Google, had a search box one. They had an enterprise search product.
Yeah.
But it was just the time, a lot of things had to come together, as you rightly articulated, for the
Yeah.
market to be ready and for the technology to be at a stage of maturity that
Yeah.
problem could be solved. Talk to us a little bit, and you started to allude to it with the transformer architecture and BERT, this interdependence between search and generative AI. In some ways, sort of that's really been the unlock. Can you talk about that in a little more detail?
These models and the technology was originally, the motivation for that was to make Google search better. That was one of the core reasons why all that investment was made. And you can see it because search, if you think about it, it's a problem that requires you to understand a user's question, and it requires you to understand all the knowledge that they're going to be using to actually help them with that question that they have. So you have to understand that knowledge at a semantic, at a conceptual level. So fundamentally, what these language models do are exactly, you can think of it as that's a search problem
Yep.
anyway. And so therefore today the language models are actually playing a very key role in making search experiences better at a fundamental level, but also at a user interaction level, because you can actually go one or two or three steps further than what traditional search could do for you before. So if you think about Google, 20 years back, when you come and when you asked a question, it'll surface some links to you. It never sort of made a claim that, hey, here's the answer to this question, right? It was good enough. We could match some
Mhm.
keywords. We could figure out what's a high quality document that seems to have those words. That was the level of
Yep.
search technology at that time. But today it's more about we are doing this matching in an abstract, high dimensional space where we are conceptually trying to take a question and again matching it with information at a semantic level. So the language models have played a big role in making search experiences better. So that's a given. So now that you have this great search product,
Yep.
can it actually help you do more with AI? That's actually the thing that I find the most interesting. So all these language models, whether you think about GPT-4 or Claude or Gemini, all of these models have been trained on the world's public knowledge. And with that training, they've become like smart humans. You can think of them as a human that is smart and that has read a lot. But these models don't know anything about private information that you have inside companies. So now if I think about, like, let's say, I'm a large enterprise and I want to use this technology to actually improve, like, my business, to make my employees more productive, to build, better products. How do I actually use this technology that knows nothing about my company? That's where now search comes in. Take an example, like, there's an employee, they have a question, they want to get an answer. The search is that glue between all of that enterprise knowledge and the reasoning and generation capabilities that these models have. So,
Yep.
and so that's how, like, if you think about the Glean product, that's how it works. Given any question that, a user has, Glean will, do the hard work of looking through the hundreds of millions of documents inside your company, find the right ones, the right sort of materials that we think can potentially answer these questions. But then we can actually take all of that and the original question and give it all to a model and make the model work on it. And so that's how you combine your knowledge with the reasoning capabilities of these models and actually solve a user problem. And so, in fact, every enterprise application today has this kind of architecture. You can call it a RAG based AI application, but typically, like, this retrieval, search plays a big role in it, and therefore search has become a fundamental component of your AI application architecture.
Makes all the sense in the world. I'm going to zoom out from the specifics of Glean a little bit to talk a little bit about your experience of building an AI startup and
Yeah,
what are the lessons that other entrepreneurs could learn. And then we'll come back to Glean in a bit. But
yeah,
what are some of the unique challenges you've had? Because you started building Glean before the hype. Now it's cool. Everyone's building an AI
yeah,
app, and
yeah,
you are clearly the leader, one of the leaders of the pack. But it
yeah.
wasn't that cool in 2019 and 2018 when you started.
That's right. Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. When we started, we already knew that we were solving a problem that enterprise leaders didn't really care about that much, because they're not seeing great products in that area and they're very skeptical. Search as a problem, like inside the enterprise, it was also never the top priority for anyone. And it was very hard to actually show ROI, make it like, a project that sort of makes a cut in terms of priorities. We knew that we had to actually educate the market, but we had no doubt in our mind that we're solving a useful problem. Whether you're an engineer or salesperson or marketer, every single person that I talked to, they had this pain. When they, as a knowledge worker, you are constantly in need of information, and you cannot find it. And one third of all employee time is actually just spent looking for information, oftentimes doing duplicate work and things like that. So fundamentally, we believed in that, we were solving an important problem, but we
Yep.
knew that we'll have to go and create a market, that we have to convince, we have to evangelize. And so, like, our initial journey was very much like that. We had to do a lot of work finding those leaders who are willing to take a chance on us, and allocate budget towards a problem that they had no intention or plans of solving. And so that's what our early journey looked like. For the first almost 4 years of the company, we were in this market creation mode. And I think we got good success by that time. Like, some of the leading technology companies, for example, they were using our product and they loved it. They could see how much productivity gains, and also, like, more than that, with happiness that we're bringing to that employee base, reducing those frustration. So we were seeing good success. But then the chat GPT moment happened, and that sort of fundamentally changed how people perceive of us, what the market looks like. And it has its own kinds of new challenges, which I can talk about. But yeah, like those were the initial days of Glean.
That's super helpful. What are some of the other challenges that, from your perspective, other AI startups face today? As a
Yeah,
founder who's
yeah.
starting an AI company today, what are the two or three things you would warn them about?
So right now, one thing that we know is that AI is big and is going to change how products in the future are going to be built and delivered. There's a lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of noise in the market right now. This is always the advice that I give to somebody who's thinking about starting a company. That right now it's very easy to get discouraged. Any problem that you'll take on, like at a high level, you will see 100 other companies trying to solve that same problem, and then you'll see, hey, this is a crowded market, and should I really be in it or not? And I think, like, you have to remember that, like, many of those companies will go away. Any problem that you try to solve, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of
Yep.
time and energy. Not giving up is the number one advice, or not pivoting too much just because you see somebody else trying to solve the same problem that you are. In my opinion, it is irrelevant how many other people are solving the problem that you are trying to solve, because solving any problem takes a long time, many years. It requires a lot of technology, and by the time you are done with it and you build it, like, you're very different from anybody else. So that's number one. Number two, as a founder thinking about an AI company, I think that statement itself, I think, has a problem. You should not be thinking about building an AI company. You should not be thinking of yourself as an AI founder. I think you have to start with the problem that you're trying to solve and to use AI as a tool, that's going to be fundamental and critical to solving that problem. But AI in itself is not the reason why you will be better than anybody else. You cannot distinguish yourself by just deploying models to a problem. You have to actually go deeper than that.
One of the things that is hard for founders, especially founders who've grown up in sort of the more traditional deterministic software era, is that AI is not perfect. You can ask the same question twice and get two different answers. That's the nature of LLMs today. And so that has implications for how you manage customer expectations. That has implications for to what extent you want to have a human in the loop. That has implications for what set of things can you do in an autonomous mode. And so there's a set of product choices you have to make. There's a set of UX choices because the UX has to reflect what the technology is capable of. Obviously, we've all made our mistakes with our Tesla car thinking this can do more than it actually could. But all entrepreneurs have to deal with that,
Yeah.
the Tesla challenge, as I call it, from a UX standpoint. Based on what lessons you've learned, what would, if you had to start all over again, what would you do differently?
I have made plenty of mistakes. It'll be hard. We can take the next 4 hours talking about all the things that I would like to do differently. But I think some of the critical ones. As an engineer, um, and I think, like, I would imagine many people are like me. Like, engineers can be conservative. We can doubt ourselves a lot. When we knew that our product was actually being well received, people are loving it. They're actually getting value from it. They're saving 5 hours every week, and these are significant productivity wins. I think we were still too conservative in terms of investing in our go to market. As a technical founder, as a technical CEO, that was like one of the biggest mistakes that I made, was basically not knowing when to accelerate, when to actually go big, and actually be okay, with that uncomfortable feeling of, well, what if you run out of money, right? I think the way the tech industry works today is, when you have a product that is working, we luckily live in a world where there's a lot of capital available,
Yep.
to technology companies, and we have to go big. And I think that's the right strategy. So we could have spent more on sales and marketing like 3 years back. Like, now we've corrected that.
A lot of engineering oriented founders, they want to see the product be perfect. And perfection is elusive, especially in an AI world. And the willingness to accept it with all its flaws
Yeah,
and still say, on balance, customers are getting value. And so we got to lean in
that's right. Yeah.
and start selling at scale.
You may feel the temptation to overpromise, to actually, when you talk to a customer, you want to wow them so that you can get attention. That is one of the learnings I had, is that, well, look at the person on the other side. They're just like you. They're also looking for a partnership, a opportunity to work with smart technical people. They don't need all the amazing features on day one. And so I think it also helps to be realistic. In the AI domain, I see this happening a lot. Like, it is very, very easy to create these super amazing demos which make you feel like, okay, well, I don't need to work anymore. This thing's going to they take over and they do all my work. Then you see that disappointment when you try to actually make it work in your enterprise. So I think that's one of the lessons that we've learned. Our product is actually like this. Our product, if you think about what it does, like, it's magic. Like, I'm actually literally telling you that, come and ask any question or give it any task and we'll do it for you. The reality is we cannot, right? I think there's no system in the world that can do it, but that's what the pitch is. And so, we have to constantly train our sales force to, like, not go and over promise and not show demos. You can show great demos, but they're going to actually hurt us later.
You get customers excited about your vision, but not overpromise such that the reality of the first few production users is positive, not disappointing. And then, of
Yeah.
course, knowing when to step on the gas. And if you step on the gas too early and go to market, then you can run out of cash. And if you don't step enough, then you don't capture the opportunity that you have created for yourself. There's a lot in the AI world, especially with LLMs and third-party models. You talked about Claude, all the models that OpenAI is releasing. How do you think about where to build internally versus where to use either open source or third party models and technology stacks? How do you think about
Yeah.
that build versus buy trade off?
There are two reasons to actually build and train your own models. One is that you think that there is no model that does a good job at the problem that you're trying to solve, and therefore you need to build a model for yourself. The second is that you have a problem of scale, like GPT 4.0 is amazing at everything, but it's too expensive and it's too slow, and therefore you need to build a model that is faster and cheaper, but can be at the same quality for your task that GPT 4.0 is. Those are two different things. Most of the startups that I see, for them the capabilities of these foundation models is more than adequate. There is no reason for you to actually go and try spend like all those engineering resources as well as compute resources on training models, especially because when you're starting out you also don't have volumes, you don't have to worry
Yep,
about cost, you barely have a customer, so why do you care? You can have the most expensive model in the company, just add value and make the thing work once.
exactly.
After that you can figure out how to reduce and bring down the costs. That's our model. We actually are very very eager always to take the latest advances coming from all these different models, and we bring them to our customers. And then there are certain problems which are high volume for us, so then for those we think about that, okay, maybe it's time
Let's
to.
custom train something, yeah, or fine tune it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've done very little of that for the reasons of cost or speed, because I think like overall the pace of improvements in model is actually pretty good. And then I think like there may be very specific problems that you're trying to solve where the the models that are available don't work for you. There are very very few use cases like that, in my opinion, that you'll run into, which sort of requires you to train and build models.
We were talking about sort of, you rightly said, hey, wherever possible, use a third party model because those are
Mm.
getting better. The
Yeah.
cost argument is rarely a relevant one for a startup. At the same time, entrepreneurs worry a lot about becoming a GPT wrapper. Obviously, on Twitter, you see that debate all the time, and lots of people call Perplexity a GPT wrapper. And of course, Arvind was like, well, at some point, everyone is a wrapper. Uh, even NVIDIA is a TSMC wrapper. What is your take on that debate?
Yeah.
How should entrepreneurs think about
Yeah.
managing the risk of getting commoditized by the next release of OpenAI?
You have to think about a business problem, and AI can be one of the components in your technology stack. But if it is all AI and you got nothing else around it, then you're not in a great business. You will obviously get commoditized. This debate of being a rapper or not. Yes, like if you're a rapper, then you haven't really built much. Like by definition, right? All you did was take a model and you brought it to the customer. But most problems that you try to solve require you to do a lot more work. These AI models are powerful, but like you said before, they are extremely hard to actually use. Like, first of all, they're not like any software that you ever used before. They are completely non-deterministic, right? You ask the same question 5 times, you're going to get five, different responses. They may be all sort of be all on the same target, but they are different. And so you have to sort of do a lot of work to actually make this model
Yeah.
technology useful for whatever application that you have. In fact, like, when you think about like training your own models, I would actually say that for most startups, probably the better thing is to spend all of that energy, instead of on training or fine tuning models. It's on preparing, for example, the right input that you can actually give to these models so that they can do a good job, and and using them effectively in your overall application architecture.
I think what people forget is most applications have data management issues, data rights, data access issues. They have workflows, they have UXs, and
Yeah.
all of those things need to come together with the AI and the models to solve a business problem for a user, and they have to work in the context of the human workflow,
Yeah.
not just the software workflow. And so I think integrating all of those things in a way that the technology becomes useful
Yeah.
is much more than a model. And I think that's where, in some ways, the know-how or the IP becomes over time. An understanding of a user's business process. In your case, how do customers use this? What do they want? And what kind of answers make sense? What don't? How do you now take the answers that are coming from these models and do agentic flows? How do you enable decisioning to happen and execution to happen on top?
I think of the model no different from, for example, a database. The fact that all the cloud hyperscalers have a great database solution, that's just a building block for a complex business problem that you're going to solve. Yeah, it should be thought of at the same way, like it's at the same level, in my opinion, in terms of its position in the application stack.
That's a great analogy. Just as over time there are dozens, if not hundreds, of databases, and you pick and choose in a pipeline or in an application. You may actually have data flowing through half a dozen different databases, depending on the use case, the nature of the data, the cost performance trade-offs. And over time, people will do the same in their model pipelines. That's very well said. Before I sort of change topics on you, just one last question in this general genre of questions. What is the hardest technical problem that you've had to solve at Glean?
So for me, the most difficult technology problem of Glean is that of search ranking and relevance, which sort of extends to assistant quality and how do you make sure that you're answering a question correctly with the right information. Enterprises are very, very complex sort of organisms. You have tens of thousands of people, you have hundreds of millions of documents, and information has been produced over like decades, and a lot of it has become obsolete. The quality of a lot of information is not great, and you have to sort of work in this complex environment and try to sort of make sense of it. And oftentimes you get it wrong. Like even a human, even if you point them to all these documents, they can't decide which one is the one that is actually
Yeah.
the right one to use. So we do a lot of work on it, but that's also a problem where we feel like I think it will never get solved, which is both an exciting thing for us. We just keep going and keep working on making the search relevance and the answer relevance better and better over time. Like there is no end in sight to like all the kind of things we need to work on.
To the extent that you're comfortable sharing, what was your unique approach to solving what is, as you rightly said, an intractable and an ongoing technical challenge?
I mean, our approach to solving this problem. First of all, what is the problem? The problem is people have questions or tasks, and we need to actually answer those questions or complete those tasks for them. And it's very open ended. Anybody can have any question, and especially with AI, we have people who come in our product and they ask questions like, "Hey, how can I do better job?" That's it. That's the question. Or how can I become better? Or what should I have done? How should I have spent my week last time? Like so, like when you start to think about, well, I can go and ask questions in this surface, and there is no bound to it. The expectations become super super high. The approaches that we have taken is instead of thinking of our product as a bunch of documents and make AI work on it and answer questions for people, we sort of change that and say that our product is more about people. We think about every individual in the company, and first we understand them uh, before we actually go and help them. And what I mean by that is that for any given person that uses Glean in an enterprise, we will know what their role is, what teams do they work in, who are their closest colleagues, who do they collaborate the most with, what information have they been using in the past, what's their current work week looks like, what are the key tasks that they're working on, because all of that context is what you can use, and then you can effectively help that individual. In fact, the interesting story I'll tell you, we when we launched Glean to the public, when we announced ourselves externally, we came out calling ourselves the work assistant. That was one of the mistakes we made. Like, people were terribly confused. What is a work assistant? I don't buy a thing like that. I don't know what this thing is. Nobody was interested in even talking to us. So we had to change. We had to come back and we had to say that, hey, we're a search product, to actually draw the connection and give people a sense of what we are. And so we're a little bit too ahead in terms of thinking about that. Like, assistants became common again. So we're now able to go back to our roots and talk about us being an AI assistant and a platform. That's how we always thought about it. And our vision for the future, this is something that I feel very confident about, is that the world, in front of us is, about to change. How people work is about to change. I'll give you an analogy. Think about a star tennis player, Roger Federer. He has a he had a team of people around him. Everybody from assistants who were helping him stringing his tennis rackets and getting him the right shoe for the right surface, to people who actually hit with him, his practice partners, so that he can be ready for the match. And then his coaches who can actually observe his swing and actually give him strategies to beat the opponent on a mental game. This team of people around him is what helps him excel and makes him the world's best player. If you come back to work, most of us as employees, we have no help around us, right? Like we have some colleagues, but like we can't really ask them to do our work. But the future is not going to look like that. All of us are going to have an amazing team of assistants and co-workers and coaches that are not only going to do like 90% of our work and make us a 10xer, but also coach us and make us better at things that we do. The only thing is that team of like 20 people around us is not going to be humans, it's going to be actually AI based agents. And so that's the world that we're headed towards. And I think that's the thing that I'm like the most excited about. And when you sort of we flip the problem, you think about in human and how to help them, that has allowed us to sort of think differently about the problem and help people more.
I want to build on that. One of the tough decisions every entrepreneur makes is the choice between going broad and horizontal and
Yeah.
going deep into a vertical. At Glean, you clearly chose to be a very broad horizontal platform. And that's an important strategic choice you made. Can you talk about that? Was that a decision you made on day one? Did that evolve over time?
First, I want to actually clarify to everyone that we have not succeeded. So this is not a winning strategy, or a losing strategy. Like it's more a choice. This is still to be figured out. But we chose to be a horizontal platform because, like this is what we were passionate about. We didn't build the company with the goal of how to actually, maximize our revenue and build that success fast. We actually started the company more with a problem in mind, and the problem in mind for us was that every employee in every business in the world struggles because we live in a knowledge and data driven world. We have to use information, we have to have information at our disposal to do our work, and it has to be seamless. When I have questions, I need fast answers to those. And that's not limited to you being an engineer or a salesperson or a support person. Everybody has that problem. And so we wanted to build it that way. But I think you have to be careful in terms of making sure that with horizontal, like there's a risk of that you're not good enough for anyone, and and you have to be absolutely be certain that as a result, you don't actually really help anyone. That can't be happening. So like in our case, we feel like the way the Glean platform works is that we think that we add tremendous value for every person out there, but it's still a fraction. It's still like maybe only 10% of everything that AI can do for them. And so we want to do more. We want to actually like add more than 10% of value horizontally across every person in the enterprise. We feel like we're way for that, and that's our platform. We look into all of our enterprise data and knowledge and system. We bring it together in one place and build an understanding of it. We can now deliver this enterprise context to vertical AI products and make them better. So like today, while we are horizontal, we have applications like Miro, which tap into Clean APIs, or Sigma, which is a BI tool,
Yeah,
taps into Clean APIs. And they're doing that to actually pull some more data from the enterprise that makes the AI features within their own products better. We are somehow getting a little bit of that influence vertically as well. Yeah.
makes a ton of sense. Across the startup and venture ecosystem, there's a lot of talk about the paradigm shift from software as a service, or what's traditionally SaaS, to service as software, where this notion that software evolved from being a tool to becoming a worker itself. And you talked about that in this context of, just like Roger Federer has a team of assistants, you imagine every individual having a team of AI assistants. Can you talk a little bit more about how you see this shift playing out?
Yeah, and in fact, actually, I saw your recent post on this topic, and it actually resonates a lot with me. I think one thing that AI is doing is it's actually democratizing that sort of notion of building systems to everybody out there. I'll give some examples. In our company, we have a sales manager, and he said that, look, I don't want to buy a CMS. I'm just going to write a prompt that actually always can give me full deep status on a customer. I can get a customer 360. And he basically trained the system. He said that this is what I do, this is how I actually do research on an account, and these are my steps. And now you just go and operationalize that for me, go and work with all the enterprise data, make it all happen. The reason I'm sharing that example is that he was able to build a very custom application that was really designed for exactly what his needs are. He didn't have to be a developer to be able to do that. So that is actually an exciting trend. There's a possibility that the number of packaged applications that you buy is going to reduce over time. And you will have some fundamental systems, but then you'll have AI that's connected to all of your enterprise that allows you to build many applications sort of yourself, which are fully sort of they fit they're custom fit to your business.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I'm really excited about, and I feel that's what we're going to be seeing more and more of.
I think you're spot on. This notion of, hundreds and hundreds of relatively small niche SaaS applications, in some companies, thousands, may
Yeah.
collapse into a handful of more infrastructure, horizontal platforms on which each individual can build their own stack of personalized applications. Could be a very different and a very exciting software architecture for the future. Thank you so much, Arvind, for your time. And thank you for sharing both your story, the story of Glean, and your vision for the future of AI and enterprise AI.
Thank you so much. This was a fun conversation.
That's our show for now. You can find past episodes and subscribe to future ones wherever you get your podcasts or at foundationcapital.com. And if you like the program, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps others to find the show. B2B as CEO is a production of Foundation Capital, an early-stage venture capital firm with over $3 billion in committed capital and 29 public companies to our name, including Netflix, Lending Club, TubeMogul, and Sunrun. At Foundation Capital, building companies is in our bones. I'm Ashu Garg, a general partner at Foundation Capital. I'm passionate about helping B2B entrepreneurs who are trying to solve hard problems. So if this podcast speaks to you, if you're a technical founder who's interested in scaling an enterprise startup into a massive business and scaling themselves into a true CEO, drop me a line.